Okay, so before we start using these two boxes together, we have to make sure that we attach the cables appropriately to get the desired result. So again, my desired result right now, I want the Octatrack Mark II to be the master MIDI clock. I also want to be able to control or send MIDI notes to my Digitone so that I can sequence it directly from the Octatrack. But I also want to be able to receive MIDI messages from the Digitone to the Octatrack because there's a very cool MIDI learn feature. On the MIDI tracks on the Octatrack, I can assign some of these knobs to different CC messages, control change messages, so that I can control different parameters on Digitone directly from here. Normally, what you'd have to do is dig into, some sort of like instruction manual, look at the MIDI implementation chart, find the correct CC number, and then assign it manually. But the Octatrack has a MIDI learn feature, which means that we can go to one of the MIDI CC knobs and tell it to wait for an incoming MIDI CC. Basically, listen for some incoming MIDI. Then I can just turn whatever thing that I want to control in the Digitone. Octatrack will learn it, and then it's set up. So this is very convenient and definitely worth taking advantage of. So, oh, and one more thing too. I want to make sure that the audio for my Digitone runs through my Octatrack. This will allow me to not only sample the Digitone and also run it through the through machines here, but it'll allow me to go out to whatever sound system using just one pair of outputs, just the outputs of my Octatrack. Okay, so with all that established, I already have this connected, but let's talk through what's going on here. If we look at the top of the Octatrack, here I have my MIDI input, my MIDI output, and my MIDI through. I've connected my MIDI in cable from the Octatrack to the MIDI out on the Digitone. Now, the reason I did this is because, like I said, I want to be able to use the MIDI learn feature on the Octatrack. And in order for me to do that, the Octatrack has to be able to hear or receive incoming MIDI messages from the Digitone. Now, I'm only using this for the MIDI learn feature, and that's it. So we're going to have to make sure that we go to the MIDI settings in both machines to make sure that we're only sending and receiving the messages that we want. We'll do that next. So MIDI in from Octatrack to the MIDI out of Digitone. Next step, the MIDI out of my Octatrack, I've connected to the MIDI in of my Digitone. Now, this is important because the Octatrack is going to be basically the master in this setup. So it's going to be sending out MIDI clock. It's going to be sending out MIDI transport so that they both start on the same step. It's going to also be sending out program change messages so that when I change the pattern on my Octatrack, the Digitone will also change its pattern. So in order to send all those messages out, got to connect the MIDI out cable from our Octatrack to the MIDI in of the Digitone so it can receive it. The other things I've done here is I have my output from the Digitone, my main left and right output is going into input A and B of my Octatrack. This way, I can run the audio from the Digitone into the Octatrack and take advantage of all the cool features that allows. And then from there, I just send the main output of my Octatrack out to my audio interface, and I'm good to go. Now, with this setup, we're going to start to dive into the menu, make sure that our settings are correct. But I will just say this first. If you just want to be able to hear the Digitone playing through the Octatrack, all you have to do at this point now, once it's plugged into the input, go to the mix menu here, and just make sure that the direct input volume is up. If it's set to 0, my Digitone is plugged into input A and B. So if the input is set to 0, I'm not going to hear it. So obviously I just need to turn it up. Then I'll be able to play my Digitone through the Octatrack. All right, with the cabling all set up, now let's go into the menus and make sure that the MIDI is being sent the way that we want.